Hello and welcome. It is episode number 23, the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast. I am Frances Echeverria, licensed marriage and family therapist.
I am Deanna Silverman, licensed clinical social worker.
Deanna, we should start the show by saying if you're listening and not subscribed, then you're only doing a half-assed job here. I mean that lovingly.
People aren't subscribed to us? What's going on with the world?
Yes, please, if you are listening and you do like what you hear or somebody turns you on to the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast, please do us a favor and help spread the love, if you will, by hitting that subscribe button. And also, we'll take your 5-star ratings. We're not above asking that.
Guys, no pressure, but I did quit my job. I did quit my job to do the social media podcast creative venture, and it's all for you. So, if we don't get those subscriptions, Mama's going to have to get a real job and go back to work.
Nobody wants any of that. Actually, that does actually lend very well into our topic, and we'll get in that in just a second. But Deanna, things were nice this last week. I got some mail. You got to be careful when you're opening the mail too. It's either bills or people looking for you.
You know what? That actually reminds me, this is not like I'm not trying to, it is the Hilarious Humanitarians, right? So there's always some comedic flair here, but I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness. But I went to my P.O. box and I got a package in the mail, and my anxiety was up. I text messaged you because, thankfully it's over for Austin, Texas, that package bomber, that apparently killed himself but fortunately ended the tyranny of fear. But I got super anxious about packages this week.
Well, and rightfully so, based on the stuff that was in the news. I appreciate that you sent me my birthday package with really colorful tape, because I knew, boom, exactly who it was from. This is Deanna's. It's decorated, and it's awesome. In fact,
did you wear your hat, by the way? So just so everyone knows, it's Frances's birthday month. We're just going to say
the whole month.
Birthday month. Yeah. So
not yet. I have not worn it yet. My child stole one of the little decorative hats, because I love that you threw that in there for my coworkers and stuff. And my birthday, we're recording this today, but my birthday's in a couple days. And so we will be busting all of that out in the radio studio where I work. So yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, because in the package, just so everybody knows, I sent Frances multiple little birthday gifts, but more importantly, I sent her a birthday girl pin she must wear.
Yes.
And a hat. And then I included tiny birthday hats for all of her coworkers and intern, and whoever is walking by must wear the birthday hat.
Well, and my kids will be in the studio with me next week, because spring break usually means, time off for kids. It means you're going to work with mom at 5 a.m. So they're going to be wearing them in the studio. Really quick on that note, how last week we were talking about love languages, and you and I talked about words of affirmation being so important. I took the little card you sent me and I added it with a little card my daughter has made for me, and then a card that my second mom has made for me. And I have my words of affirmation wall that's across my mirror. So I see it every single morning when I wake up. And I just thought that's kind of a cool thing that ties into the love languages topic that we covered.
For sure. I love that.
So you should do that at home with your stuff. So anything exciting going on in your neighborhood, your neck of the woods down south?
Well, I still am sleep deprived, but now it's not so much about my kid anymore. This sucks. It's so weird. I've been a renter my whole life, and we just bought a house last year, and now all of a sudden, don't get me wrong, when I was renting, if there was crime in the area, I still was ever present and, trying to do neighborhood watch. But now that I'm a homeowner, I'm the crazy HOA, even though we don't have an HOA, I'm the person that's trying to rally the troops and be who do we need to contact to get these people out of our neighborhood? And what I mean by that is people who are breaking into cars. It's so sad, because we live in a really nice area and it's all safe and the community is wonderful and we're all really tight. But recently there's been a lot of just unsavory characters coming around at midnight and 4 a.m. So that sucks. And so now I'm on high alert, checking our security cameras and
Deanna's all detective.
So we've got this Facebook page for just the neighborhood. It's one of those closed groups. And I'm the weird neighbor who's okay, so now I've got this other idea. what about, because we have a Rottweiler, so her poops are huge. What about I save up Tessa's poops and we wrap them up in boxes, because people are also stealing boxes off of front porches, and we just plant Amazon boxes full of shit all over the neighborhood for these people to come pick up. And then, like, of course, the more like reasonable, sane neighbors are like, well, I'm a little concerned because what if they get upset and then they start throwing shit? I'm like, I don't know. Who cares?
I think you could be onto something.
That's pretty fucking funny.
I think you could be onto something.
But okay, I am in no way endorsed. Like, we're not getting sponsorship money or marketing money, but this is just me having a conversation. One of my other neighbors who's like more on my wavelength, he found this company that's called the Blank Box. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
It's pretty ingenious. I think it's a guy, I think he's in Washington. He got so sick and tired of people stealing like boxes off his front porch when he was at work that he created this box that shoots off rifle blanks.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like, it's like motion sensor or something. Like when you lift up the box, like if you YouTube Blank Box, and not only like there's videos of like thieves trying to steal this box, and it basically explodes in their face. It sounds like a round of ammunition is going off, and they basically shit their pants and run away.
That is genius.
Right? And so I was like, that, I don't know. I'm totally for it, but then I'm also a worrywart where I'm like, okay, what about like retribution? Like, I don't want somebody coming back and being pissed. And now we're in a gunfight. Like, now I've got my guns and now you've got your guns and we're all covered in shit. Now, like, I'm overthinking this, but how the fuck do I get you out of my neighborhood?
Deanna, how did you get to this point? You know what this is called? A spiral? This is where you use cognitive behavioral therapy to interject and stop.
As much as I'm like, you know, my personality, I'm like all like hippy dippy flower crowns and unicorns, and I just want everyone to be like kind and nice. But I'm like, but bro, if you come in my neighborhood and start making people feel unsafe, then I take a turn. And now I'm about to whip out my guns and fling poo into your face. It's always 0 to 60 with me, always. So if you guys want to diagnose me, feel free. I'm open.
All right. Well, this is going to be an interesting concept that we're talking about today, because we just started the show by saying, hey, you should follow us and rate and subscribe and all that stuff. Today's show is all about a new phenomenon called Unfollow Friday. So in the show today, we're going to give you the background on that. We're also going to talk about how social media impacts our lives, and sometimes not so much in a positive way. And then shift gears a little bit to the idea of social media and children, which should be interesting because your little one is only 2.
She's 17. Oh yeah. So I'm still in the place where I'm allowed to say months.
Yes, you are.
Although I've personally decided, instead of saying 17, well, next month she's 18 months, which officially makes me at a place where I could say 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So heads up, everyone.
And
I'm going to be saying it.
Mine are 8 and almost 10. So we're kind of on a different end of the spectrum here with kids and social media. So we'll talk about that. We'll also have our feel good news to wrap up the week and a listener shout out. So you were the one that told me about Unfollow Friday, which, as a social media guru that you are with the Hilarious Humanitarian Instagram
guru,
I think once you pass a couple 100,000 followers, you fall into that category. Explain Unfollow Friday.
Okay, so I actually have a follower. I don't like the word follower. I still don't. So I have a friend. Her name is Allison, and she actually has her own podcast. I believe it's called The Wilderness Girls Don't Bluff. Maybe I'm botching that, so I'm so sorry, Allison, if I botched that. But anyway, her Instagram is called The Wilderness Girls Don't Bluff. And I was looking on her Instagram one day, and she had this post about Unfollow Fridays. And basically the gist is like, Unfollow Fridays is just as it sounds. Like, unfollow all of the accounts that make you feel like shit, that make you feel inferior, that you're not enough. And we all have them. I don't care if it, like, okay, ones that I also have an Instagram page that I don't talk too much about, but it's called Humanitarian Mom. And at first, like when I first had my kid, I was like, maybe I should just, I don't know, start salt and peppering, like
Mom stuff.
Make up a fucking word like salt and you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Maybe I should start adding mom stuff on the Hilarious Humanitarian. Sprinkling it in, if you will. And I started doing that, and I realized the Hilarious Humanitarian brand is very much like mental health oriented, and I was losing followers because they were like, wait a second. I mean, your kid's cute and all, but that's not what I came here for.
Okay, so I separated it out.
Right. So I wanted to like respect the audience. So I made a second account, Humanitarian Mom. And what I've noticed is like when I'm going through social media and I find these like really beautiful social media accounts where like the pictures are super polished and all the kids are wearing matching socks, even shoes.
Their hair is brushed.
Yeah. The hair doesn't have a single knot in it. Mom is actually wearing makeup, she's actually wearing clothes, not just her pajamas like me. I'm currently still in my pajamas. I don't know, like depending on the day and depending on my mood, like it can either help me or hurt me. Some days it inspires me, but most days it makes me feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm doing something wrong or I don't know. Just makes me feel bad. So Unfollow Fridays is just taking inventory of who you're following and who you're assaulting your senses with, because it really kind of does feel like an assault. Especially now with how Instagram is so stupid and the algorithm is so messed up. Like it's no longer chronological on our feed anymore. It's like based on some mysterious computer algorithm that no one can figure out. We end up seeing like the same accounts. We have to like manually go find people that we actually want to see. So I personally have started just unfollowing people that I'm like, maybe I would follow you if you just stayed in your corner in terms of like in my world where like if I go down my news feed, you're going to be there if it was chronological. But for some reason, certain people always pop up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And a part of that, I feel like just being in the social media world is like, we're kind of like, I feel like humans are like a glutton for punishment. We don't want to feel inferior and insecure, but we like constantly expose ourselves to things that make us feel inferior and insecure. And so what ends up happening is the more we go on these people's profiles and view, so you don't even have to like it or comment on it, just because it keeps popping up within the algorithm on your page, like then it just keeps popping up. It's like this reoccurring assault to your senses.
So you brought up that it's the super perfect family images. And right now I wonder.
For me personally. Yeah. Okay.
And you said that and I immediately, I know somebody that I follow where that's what it comes immediately. Every single photo it's not real. It's so staged. And so when I'm thinking about this, so I think this kind of goes to some of the reading I've mentioned. I've been doing a lot of reading of Brene Brown, and she talks about shame and the things that make us feel shame. And for a lot of women in particular, it's about motherhood, being a parent. There's also for men and women, body image issues, occupation, stuff like that. Like how many people look at photos from vacations and they're jealous of the other people that are, on vacation, for instance. It used to be you'd have to know that person up close and personal to see their vacation photos, but not anymore because they're all posted online. But I was thinking of a few areas. I mean, if people are listening right now, just think, have you ever wanted to unfollow somebody because of their constant posting of political stuff? For instance, that's always one that makes me kind of cringe. If it's somebody that, if it's presented in a way that I feel is distasteful or downright offensive.
Right.
One.
Have you heard like the new movement where like there was a data breach or leak within Facebook, and so everyone's creating this hashtag delete Facebook, I believe the hashtag is. So I was reading this article last night that like it's like 500 million people are active on Instagram every single day. And they are projecting that by like 2020 or 2021, it's going to be like 1 billion people are active on Instagram every single day. And the huge like increase in influx is because so many people are sick and tired of Facebook that they're deleting their Facebook and they're walking away from Facebook.
Yeah.
But with that said, there are some complaints that Instagram is starting to feel a little bit like Facebook as well, with like the advertisement and people getting too political or whatnot. But here's the beauty of Instagram, right? Is for the most part, these huge accounts aren't people that you personally know. Whereas on Facebook, for the most part, actually young people are weird. They'll add anybody. Well, actually, like in your 20s, when I was single, I remember I'd be like, hey, what's your Facebook? Instead of like a phone number. So like, can I stalk you first?
Yeah, right.
Dance together at a club and whatever. But Facebook felt like a little bit more personal because it's like your aunts and your uncles and your cousins and that person you went to high school 20 years ago. And I guess I'll add you because we saw each other at a reunion, but you're weird, but I'll still have you on there. Whereas Instagram's more a little ambiguous about your like personal connection with them. So, but like you can use that argument and say like, that's also why people are so fickle on Instagram. I swear to God, okay, I have 340 some odd thousand people that follow me. Every day I get messages from people that tell me how to run my account or are like, don't say that. They try, like, I'm 35 years old. My husband can't even tell me what to say or do. You think you're going to have some influence on me? Come on now. I also respect people's difference of opinions and I encourage and I have facilitated many times where it's like, let's have a civil discussion, even though it's a disagreement. Let's do this. I want to model what that looks like for people. But the second you become disrespectful or assume that I'm just going to like bow down to your demands, it's not even a request, it's a demand. No, that's not happening.
That's not how this works.
That's not how this works. That's not how life works. But also from an account holder or content creator, I need to understand that's how quickly you can lose people. But I would rather be authentically who I am and true to myself, because if I was constantly doing what everybody wants me to be, first of all, there would be no direction because everybody's opinion differs. And then I would lose motivation to even do it. Like, what the hell am I doing this for? And I'd delete it.
Because then it doesn't feel like you anymore. You're right. And you're never going to make everybody happy. And if you're just kind of checking in here real quick, we're talking about Unfollow Friday and the things that make us feel less than or inadequate in what we are consuming, because basically that's what we are doing. You're consuming social media. I know for me, one thing that I really struggle with is the sharing of what I feel like are very personal images for the purposes of tracking weight loss or body changes.
I was just about to ask you your thoughts about that, because I know you're big into fitness and working out, and you're not some like unrelatable like person that, like I feel like I would be motivated by your pictures of your Spartan races and whatnot, because where I am in my life, I'm like, I can't do that, but I feel like I can relate to you. But like, what are your thoughts about?
I'm thinking about this, like, and if you've listened to the podcast before, I've dealt with an eating disorder and image issues, body image issues forever. And one of the things I started unfollowing before I knew there was an unfollow thing was there were a few accounts that I kind of stumbled upon, but then I realized it was very neurotic in these people that ran the account of the way that they would track their food and stuff and then share it online. There was this movement, if it fits my macros, right, which is about tracking macronutrients, which you want to get OCD type level specific, kind of almost a little neurotic and crazy. You start getting into people that are super, super into that. Now, I'm not judging everybody, but I'm just saying like that is a very slippery slope for someone like me. So I had to unfollow some of those accounts. Now, I guess as a woman.
Can I stop you for a second just to dive a little bit deeper into what you just said? Because this is my interpretation of it. It's like somebody with a history of an eating disorder, a part of the eating disorder, a big part is needing to hang on to control.
Yes.
Correct? Those images and the constant speaking toward tracking numbers and being so detail oriented and like looking at the labels and tracking it via social media, there is a lot of control there. And so that can be triggering to some people who are trying to let go of the control and be a little bit more flexible in their life. Is that what you're?
Yeah. And I also just, when we take anything too far, there are red flags. Now, I'm not diagnosing any of these people in these accounts that I follow, but I just think that for me, I know that there's some behaviors that get a little problematic. And you're right. When it's front and center and all the time, I just was like, you know what? No offense to this person. They've done a great job reshaping their life and their body and everything, but I can't be consuming this because it's too triggering.
Yeah.
But, and as I was saying too, like as a woman, and I don't want to downplay men that have body image issues because they certainly exist. And we've had listeners that have contacted us about this. I really struggle with seeing constant photos of women in their underwear
Sorry.
I know, right? And I know that I'm going to piss some people off, but here's the difference. And then, well, you can wear a bikini and blah, blah. A bikini is at a beach in a very different setting than you in your bedroom or in your bathroom in your underwear. And it's so normalized. And again, I am all about having a healthy body image, being proud about your changes, all of those things. But I really struggle. with seeing people in their fucking underwear on social media, because is that really to track your progress? Is that really to show what a normal body looks like? Or is that, let's be real honest, is that serving like a purpose of trying to get validation through a different way? I don't know. I don't have the answers, and I know I'm going to piss people off one way or another, but I struggle with it.
Yeah, no, but here's the point is we aren't judging people. You and I right now are talking about taking inventory of how content makes us personally feel. This is just us being vulnerable and sharing to the world our experience on social media. So we're not saying this is how you need to feel every time you see a man or a woman in their underwear on social media. You should feel appalled and want to unfollow them. No, we're not saying that at all.
And I'm not even saying that that's what happens to me. I just struggle.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just sharing our thoughts and feelings about it. If you go to my humanitarian mom account, it even says in the bio, like no judgment parenting style. So I'm sure somebody, if they wanted to start a fight, could come to me and say, well, you judge the person who has the polished Instagram account and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, I'm not judging them. And I'm also very, very acutely aware of how everything, for the most part, especially these big accounts, it's a marketing angle. They're creating an image to create revenue. And I'm not going to hate on that for 1 second, especially if somebody who quit their job and is trying to make this work, in terms of like having a revenue stream. You need to be marketable. So I get why they do it. I just need to take inventory of how it's making me feel, because I'm a sensitive gal. And I, just as you, like you might see an image or something and you just kind of start to tailspin into this like weird place of like, am I doing enough, or why don't I look like that? Or even just being irritated. It might not even be a reflection of how you feel on yourself. You just might be irritated. In that same article that I was reading about people walking away from Facebook, this guy said, you can take my Facebook, but you're going to have to pry Instagram from my cold, dead hands or something like that. And this other woman was like, Instagram is my happy place, which is why I walked away from Facebook, because it was nothing but just ignorance and people taking just clickbait headlines, not even reading the article and presenting it as fact and then tearing each other apart because there was a difference of opinion. Like that doesn't feel good. So we're just talking about like, if Instagram is my safe place, then are the profiles that I'm exposing myself to making me feel safe and happy? Yes or no? And if it's not, and it's causing more damage than good, then it's Unfollow Friday.
And that's what we encourage you to do as you're thinking about this, is to think about, again, it all goes back to what you're consuming. I was having a conversation with somebody about, he was an athlete that I was working with in my clinical setting. And I asked him, when you played, did you just show up at the game and expect to do better than the last game? He looked at me like, because clearly I was never a professional level athlete. And he was just kind of laughing. I said, no. And he goes, of course not. And he talked about how you had to put in all the training and you had to make sure you ate right and slept right and did all of the things to take care of yourself. And I said, well, then what makes you think that just coming to therapy once every 2 weeks, you're going to get better every week? And he kind of paused.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to drive that home. Just because you're going to therapy or listening to a podcast, as much as I love that you're listening to us, or reading the feel-good accounts online, because there are a lot of great ones, it requires work. It requires being very cognizant of the things that you are consuming. And by that, I mean things like the news that you're watching, and you've talked about that, and also the social media that we're consuming, because the reality is that very, very many of us live online. That is that's a very real place.
Right.
So to be aware. Now, I was thinking, I'm gonna fess up and own up to being an asshole right now. There was a time in my life where I thought things like people of Walmart were funny. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I see where you're going. I'm going to have to go into my head. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you're listening on what are you talking about? There was a whole website and then it just kind of went one step further where people would take shaming photos of other people. This particular website, it tended to be like, it was called People of Walmart. There were photos that were taken at Walmart. They were never flattering photos. They were never, anything that was supposed to make you feel better. It was all about laughing at the absurdity of it. Well, and this is where I was an asshole because I laughed and I looked at that stuff for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere I started thinking, Frances, you're being a bitch. Like, how can you be such a hypocrite to expect people to be nice and to encourage like a positive mindset if you're consuming this stuff and finding it funny? And then something flipped in my head where I went, how intrusive and rude and inappropriate is it to do that and then post photos of people for a laugh? And I don't care if they're out in public and so they're in public property and you're able to snap a photo. But I mean, if you think about that for a minute, like what are we getting our laughs at the expense of?
Yeah. No, I have a confession actually, and it kind of goes, maybe this will make a transition because this is kind of a mini two-part series, this episode. Yes. We're talking about as adults unfollowing things that don't make us feel good on social media. And I guess this is a good time to kind of go into the next segue. So we're going to talk about the importance of shielding our kids, as far as I'm concerned, from social media. And here's my confession. I'm not proud of it because this was actually really current. God, it's hard. It's hard looking at yourself in the mirror, isn't it? And bullshit.
Yeah, and to then admit it on a public platform that's there forever.
I'm embarrassed and I haven't even said it yet. Okay, so I don't do this that often. Here I am justifying it. I mean, really not. But there are some Instagram accounts that I'm actually friends with the person behind the account, and they're actually really good people. But the character, let's say, that they're trying to portray is completely opposite of who I know this person to be. And maybe that's why it's also hard for me to, you know what I mean? Like completely shun what they're doing. But this person will post those Musical.ly, is that what it's called? The Musical.ly apps. You know what I'm talking about?
Like the karaoke?
Yeah. Like the kids are like lip singing.
Okay. Yeah.
Super awkward or super cringy. So I don't do this like routinely, but I have been guilty of going on this person's account and looking at those videos and like, oh God, like cringing or even laughing. And if I have commented, it's been like, I'm uncomfortable because I am uncomfortable. I've never like attacked the minor, because usually like they're minors in the video.
Oh, my son loves that. He has a Musical.ly.
Right. So from here on out, guys, moving forward, I am not going to support the exploitation of very awkward or cringy, videos that young, impressionable, very easily influenced children make, because kids don't realize how awkward, maybe they do know how awkward they are, maybe internally, but like friggin' kids are really awkward and very silly and oftentimes silly looking. They're like losing their teeth and they're getting big teeth, but their head hasn't caught up.
Oh, so you met my son.
I've met a few kids, in the age range of 8 to 15, 8 to 13. Okay, so that's my confession. I'm not going to do that anymore. So with going into what we're going to talk about now, there was an article that I read that was so on point as far as I'm concerned. And it's this woman, she's talking about the Musical.ly app. Now, if you guys still don't know what the hell we're talking about, how do you spell it? It's like musical.ly. Okay,
yeah.
And those collection of videos of like, it's a popular song and the kid is like lip singing. And unfortunately, oftentimes they're like making sexy faces and sticking their finger in their mouth to try to appear seductive, which makes me want to turn into a roly-poly, crawl into a hole and die, because it literally makes me feel so awkward. And this article this woman wrote was basically talking about like not allowing your kids to, just don't allow them to have that app. And
really?
Actually the title of the article was like, what was it? It's like, porn isn't the worst thing. So it's kind of like an eye-catching like article.
Yeah, porn isn't the worst thing on Musical.ly.
Right. And so you're like, what the hell is she talking about? And I read it from start to finish. I sent it to so many of my friends. I made my husband read it because I'm like, well, you better read this because this is how I'm going to approach social media with our child when she's of age, where she starts saying, I want to be on social media. And the whole gist of the article is talking about how like, just because you justify your kid being on the app by saying, oh, well, they're private, so like the pedophiles can't get to them.
Which is, by the way, this is my argument and why my son has one. So you're educating me right now.
Okay. So she was like, just because the pedophiles or the, bad stuff in the world can't find them because they're private, it is like putting like a Harry Potter cloak on them, making them invisible, and then dropping them off into like the pit of the universe where it's nothing but hashtag self-harm, cutting, kids, 10-year-olds trying to act sexy, like suicidal gestures, suicidal ideology. I've seen like sex and genitals and all sorts of stuff. So she talks about, it's like dropping your kid off. Yes, they're invisible, but it's like letting them walk into a warehouse full of the most horrible things in the world without any, not that like, even if you went with your parent hand in hand and they're explaining it to you, it's not appropriate to expose our children to this kind of content, especially when their brains are literally like half cooked, right? Because a person's brain isn't fully developed until they're like in their 20s. So you're talking like a 10-year-old. And remember, adolescents have extremely poor impulse control, poor decision making. They're extremely egocentric. They're very egotistical. Like,
and this isn't because they're just being jerks. It's just that their brain has not developed fully. So we have to keep that in mind.
Right, exactly. This is like, we're talking like frontal cortex, like science of the brain. Like they literally cannot, like I remember when I was an adolescent, my mom would be like, Deanna, the world doesn't revolve around you. She would say that all the time. And I'm like, I look back and I kind of laugh going, I truly felt like it kind of was, like maybe in the things I was saying and doing, because I was just a stupid little, like 12-year-old, that's getting mouthy. So I don't know. She even goes on to talk about like, she saw this killed me. She saw like a 10-year-old little kid on commenting towards another 10-year-old who was like saying things like they want to kill themselves. And the other 10-year-old was like, please don't kill yourself. You're beautiful and I will be your friend. And she was like, is that what we really want our 10-year-old? Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like it's a nice idea that 10-year-old has a heart and doesn't want to see anybody hurt themselves. But let's take it a step further. Like, we're talking about a 10-year-old being exposed to something that they should be like reading books and listening to music and outside collecting flowers, or, you know what I mean? Like, not trying to talk a stranger out of ending their life.
That's a little extreme and a little young to be getting involved in that. Plus, on the outside of that, from like a clinical perspective, I don't know if you had this in your practice, but I've dealt with a lot of teens who do find themselves in that saving capacity very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a whole set of pathological behaviors later.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're the ones that are like trying to help, right? Like
right.
The helpers.
Yeah. Like the helpers. It messes up the helpers.
Yeah. And so it's just, I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to be honest. Looking at that article now and seeing that, because again, I downloaded Musical.ly because my son, he likes to sing and dance, and he does the videos, and they are so awkward. They're cute because he's my kid, but they are so awkward. And sometimes I see the songs and I'm like, no, that song's not okay. No.
Right.
But looking at that now, he broke his phone, which, by the way, I didn't buy him a phone. It was a gift he got for Christmas. His parents are split up. My kid's parents are split up. And he smashed that phone, and I can't be any happier.
Right? In fact, in the article, the woman was saying how like she went on a tour of the high school that her kid was going to go to, you know, incoming ninth graders. And the tour leaders were these two senior girls who they both said how they don't have a phone. Well, they do have a phone, but they have a flip phone.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, how do you feel about that? And they're like, I don't have time for social media. Like, they're so involved with extracurricular activities and sports and dance and ASB or yearbook, whatever it is. Like, they've got so much time. They have limited amount of time. And another really amazing point that she made, which this really drove it home for me, was I don't want my kid having access to another kid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's what social media provides us, access to each other. And I don't want kids having access to my kid. I want my child after school, you know, when she's in school, she's going to be around kids all day long, some that are rad, some that aren't so rad, some that might be being mean to her. And I want her to come home to her safe space, to not have to worry about kids continuing to have access to her. You know what I mean? Because it never stops. Like, if you're a kid that's being bullied in school, then we're living in a day and age where if they're on social media, they come home and they could still potentially be bullied.
No, absolutely.
Every second, every minute of every single day. And also, here's another huge point, and I've talked about this before. I am so grateful that I was not a child in the world today. I'm so grateful that I was a child in the 90s where like I was rollerblading and playing pogs and trying to figure out how to get to my friend's house because she's a mile away, and I broke my leg playing outside. And so I literally crutched to her house.
And you don't have a map.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got my backpack full of pogs. And like, I am so grateful that I didn't have access to social media, because I undoubtedly would have posted something completely stupid, completely ignorant, unintentionally hurt somebody by some stupid comment, opinion I may have had, and then decided to post it to the world. And it just freaks me out thinking about how these decisions then get set in stone. You know what I mean? And it can be so difficult to undo damage that's already been done by some like ignorant little kid that's impulsive and decided, oh, I've got a funny joke, and then like post it to social media, and then it blows up in their face. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
And this isn't about like bubble wrapping your kid and like, oh, they're going to see it anyway. You can't put your kid in a bubble and protect them forever. It's like, excuse me, they're 10 years old. It's my personal obligation. It's my personal responsibility to protect my child. And yes, they are going to see social media later on in life, but you know what? I'm going to give their brain a few more years to develop so that when I present this information to them, they're able to take it in and conceptualize it and understand it a little bit better.
See, so I said my son, he has the Musical.ly, and I see his videos, but you know what? He actually didn't want me to follow him. And then he got in an argument and I'm not allowed to get a Musical.ly because that's his social media. Because that's the kind of logic I'm dealing with with an 8-year-old, is that he has dibs on it. Okay.
Okay. So he's private though, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because I was going to say, before we started recording, I actually downloaded Musical.ly and I was searching and I was like, oh, I'm going to follow him then and like spy and tell you what's going on.
Now he does. My kid does have a YouTube account.
Okay.
And he's done a couple of videos and we've checked those, and it's silly things like playing hide and seek. He is aware that there are things that, like we don't talk about where we live, where, our house, we don't put identifying, if you're doing something in the front yard, you don't put that up so you can see the address, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that is this, everybody, us, kids, everybody, we all consume social media, but what are we doing to contribute to the creativity? And then also for kids, they think you can just become YouTube famous and they don't realize that there's like a lot of work and effort and things that go into becoming, turning something like YouTube into a career. But so that's my son, who just is like hell-bent on being famous. And then my daughter, she's been trying to get a Snapchat, which her dad and I are both, she wants it because of the filters, which are cute. One of my younger nieces has one, so she, wants to be able to engage with her. But I'm also very aware that like my daughter is a beautiful little girl, and she is prime age for fucking perverts.
And not only that, but when that's a huge thing. I'm not just saying like, not only that, I'm not trying to minimize it. But once again, like reading this article, it was talking about how over time, when we're exposed to content and messages, even tiny messages, but over time it takes on a cumulative effect. I heard that like people, like grown-ups, are literally taking pictures of them with Snapchat filters on to their like plastic surgeon to be like, okay, I need my nose to look like this. Like you could literally Google like plastic surgery and Snapchat, and articles will come up about the distortion of how people start to perceive themselves. So your child, I've met her. She is beautiful inside and outside. She's gorgeous. It worries me though when any child gets on a app like Snapchat where it starts to alter their face. I mean,
that makes sense, yeah.
I'm even guilty of it because I'm very lazy when it comes to like I need to get better about doing my hair and putting on my makeup, not because I'm trying to impress anybody. The only people I see is my husband, who loves me without makeup, and my dog and my kid. They could care less, but it makes me feel better. But like I noticed if I didn't put on my makeup that day and I looked like a schlub, like I would go on Snapchat and just be like, screw it, I'll just put this filter. Or like, oh my God, the Facetune app is what the fuck? Like
I don't even know what that is.
Holy smokes. Oh my God. Like, oh God. I am going to post like a before and after Facetune picture. Okay. And I'll admit I've used Facetune before because
What is Facetune?
Facetune it's one of those apps that, you post a picture of yourself and you're like, holy shit, my forehead wrinkles, or I have that frown in between my eyebrows, like
I have a 5 head, and anytime I do expressions, you're seeing it in the video, I get the wrinkles up here.
Yeah. So
I'm incapable of not having my forehead wrinkle.
I'm gonna post a picture of, if you're okay with this, of me and you before and after Facetune. And I gotta say, even as a almost 35-year-old woman, it's hard to say no when you know that apps are out there that could like freshen you up and make you look a little bit better.
So you know how You know, we
I don't
talked about
know.
earlier.
It worries me with the young kids.
That makes sense. But you know what? I'm going to be really real. You know how I said earlier that I need to know the things that are going to trip me out or set me off?
Yeah.
I don't want to have my face done on that.
Really? Okay. I'll respect that.
And not because, you know, I don't want you to make a point. Like, I mean, I think it could make a great point, but I know I have enough hangups that I don't need that.
Got it.
And so I think that that's an important thing to know. And that's what we're talking about, constantly being aware. Now you could, you know, someone could argue and say something like, oh, it's just an app, like just get over it, whatever, get over yourself. No, because it's going to sit there. It's going to sit there in a place that doesn't feel good. And I don't want any more stuff that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah. Now, if there was a Snapchat that constantly, it was just dedicated to turning your face into animals.
Like, see, those are the ones that my daughter wants, where it turns her into having waffle ears.
Right. And that's what I'm assuming your daughter was going toward. She probably doesn't even realize that there's a Snapchat filter that has just like sparkly eyeshadow glitter and
perfect eyeliner,
perfect smooth skin. So like if they could take that out and just make like a Snapchat animal filter, I'm sure like if that happened years from now, we're going to like be dealing with an epidemic of people who are trying to turn themselves into animals. But like I would rather have
furries.
Yeah. I would rather have that than a bunch of people that are like, blast my face, I've got a wrinkle. You know?
Oh, you know what's crazy? Okay, so the other day, and we're talking about being Unfollow Friday is the theme of this, but also being aware of what social media does to your own personal well-being, whether it has to do with your physical appearance, your mental state of mind, emotional, whatever, even how much money you make in the car you drive. Because look, everybody puts their best version of themselves, their highlight reel on social media. Very rarely do they put the bad stuff. And unless they're trying to, you know, there's like some boundary things that are going on or trying to get sympathy or whatever. My son said something to me the other day and told me not to get wrinkles. And I was like, what are you talking? Where did that come from? And he wasn't being a jerk. He doesn't have a filter sometimes and just doesn't pick up on cues and things. But I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, he basically told me wrinkles were bad. And so I tried to kind of explore that rather than get mad. I just explored it and I tried to explain to him, you know, like your skin changes, you know, and I kind of went into something about, because we had a conversation before where, I don't know, he like poked at my stomach and I was, you realize you grew in there, right? The body is an amazing thing. You grew in there. So sorry if my stomach's not super flat, but kid, this is what this looks like, you know? So anyways, I just thought that was interesting because I didn't expect my 8-year-old to be telling me not to get wrinkles. Thanks, kid. I'm only turning 35.
Yeah. Right. Like, where did that come from? You know?
I know where it came from. It's from all the stuff he's consuming. Even if here we don't even have TV, really. We have like Netflix. But, you know, I mean, he's consuming that from somewhere. Right.
It's interesting too. I think about this often, like people who Facetune the crap out of their pictures and or like go on dating websites, only post polished. They're angling the camera like 6 feet above their head. It's like a bird's eye view picture. So it's just like, you know, we all look the skinniest when we're kind of looking up at the camera. I feel like that would be setting me up for like a lot of anxiety for when I actually meet people in person. You know what I mean? Like when I was on dating websites back in the day, I would actually purposely put pictures of myself that weren't like the most attractive because then I would be like, well, then when I meet them, they're going to be pleasantly surprised.
So it's funny you say that because if you've listened to previous episodes, you know, I'm dabbling in the dating world. And I saw a few profiles where guys, please look like your photos. And I was like, this guy's being a dick. Why would you write that? Well, he's probably writing that because it really happens. And then also I had seen somewhere it's, you know, please don't use the pretty filter on Snapchat. That's what I've called it, the pretty filter. It's the one that kind of clears your skin up and highlights you and stuff. And I've known people that will not post photos without heavy editing. That said, I do use a filter because some days my skin does not look as clear as I want it to be, whatever. And the bags under my eyes have been there since I was 2. So
I was a stressed out toddler.
But it was struggle. I was born stressed. Anyway, but with the photos on dating sites, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The reality versus what you're seeing. In fact, my first go around on dating sites, I didn't put any photos where you could see me because it was partially because listeners would find me, and I didn't want clients, family, and whatnot to find me. This go around, I have photos of myself up there, but again, they're a lot of them are like photos I've taken, so whatever.
Yeah.
I like to think I look like my photos.
I don't know, man. It's a tough world out there. There's so much like critique, and it's like if it wasn't bad enough that we had like everyone's opinion about who and what we're all about and what we look like it's so, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's just like we're living in a world where like we've come a really far, like we've really come far in terms of like embracing like the whole body positivity movement. I'm so grateful that my daughter and your daughter are living in a time where like the female body's being more diversely represented in media. Oh my God, women wear a size 14 and up. Yeah, you weirdo. Like that's the average size of the American woman. But like when we grew up in the 80s and 90s, like the only people, like Kate Moss was basically who was all over the magazines. Do you remember the phrase or the slang like heroin chic? Like that was actually you.
Yeah.
Guys, heroin chic? That's literally pairing a horrific, devastating illegal drug to like the word chic.
We have gotten better in that way.
Right? But then like in other ways, it's like one step forward, two steps back. It's like we've come a long way, but just as we say that, there's a new app that changes our entire body and face and morphs us into this like baby butt skin, like no wrinkles anywhere. And I'm 68 years old. Look how fantastic I look. So not real. It's just unrealistic.
So as we're kind of wrapping up how social media has impacted our lives and hopefully made people kind of think about it, I have a couple of insider tips on unfollowing people without it being too terribly obvious, because I've had to learn this a few ways. On Instagram, I haven't figured it out so much, but on Facebook, there are the things where you can just like hide posts. There's an option where it says hide posts like this, or you can hide posts from people.
Right. Yeah.
Without unfriending them, because God forbid you unfriend somebody and if that starts drama, because the reality is sometimes you need to just hide them and not unfriend them.
I have many people on Facebook that's the situation. Like if I unfriend them, they might find out. It's going to cause a lot of drama and hurt feelings, but I just cannot handle what they post anymore. And so I've hid all of their posts. So I just don't see anything.
Yeah. Instagram needs something like that. The other thing that I learned this out of necessity from being divorced twice. So on Facebook, you know how it has where you can put like if you're in a relationship or whatever, and then it'll like broadcast when you make a change to that.
Yeah.
So so the trick I learned is you go in and you hide that part, which, okay, big deal. But I'm talking about, if you're in a relationship, you usually don't hide that stuff. But if you see that relationship going downhill fast and there's going to need to be a change, you go in and you hide your relationship status, make it private, so that then when you switch it or disconnect, for instance, from your spouse that you were with before, it doesn't broadcast it to everybody.
Yeah. Isn't it like a setting that says like only me can see it? Yeah.
And that's actually something I've used in real life that I have then taken into clinical practice, because this is, people can say, oh, this is stupid, this is silly. I have had full-on therapy sessions with people trying to manage their online relationships. It's real. This is the life we live in. And if you're listening to us on this podcast, you are somewhat tech savvy and probably connected through something like Instagram to one of us. So you understand that as much as we want to say, oh, it's just social media, it's not that big a deal. It is. So to kind of,
I hate when people say online isn't real life. no, like it can't get any more real because people are showing you every facet of them. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like online is actually more real sometimes than physical real life, because in the physical world, here's an example. I used to work with somebody who always was so positive, and she was like what you would call like a kiss ass or whatever. And she never showed anything different ever. And it would drive me crazy because I never felt like I was getting like the authentic.
Oh, so she was
version.
managing herself in person.
Yes, exactly. But, I guess this isn't the greatest example because she isn't really on social media at all. But like, there are those people, and then on social media, they just let the fucking freak flag fly. Their demons come out and their true colors come out. And they just think that because they're living behind their phone or their computer, that it's not real. Like, homie, it is so real. In fact, the stuff you put online can destroy your life potentially. So
I
to
actually
say, like,
hope
this isn't real, like, is completely ignorant. People need to stop saying that.
I actually like those people. I consider it, sometimes, and this goes back to what we were talking about on unfollowing certain people, when the ones that get out of control with their views that are just, I'm like, I cannot believe you're saying that. I've had to have this conversation with my co-host on my radio show. I'm like, listen, back in the day, everybody had a soapbox or a kitchen table at Thanksgiving where you had that one racist asshole uncle, right? Yeah. Well, now that asshole uncle has a social media account. So I don't think that it's necessarily that there are more people, I'm trying to be positive here, that are completely out of line. I think it's that just everybody has a voice now. And I hope that they will change their mind in their ways, but you know what? Do your thing so I can sort you out and unfollow you today.
I hear you. I do. Because it's just like, thank you for not wasting my time and making things very crystal clear that you aren't somebody that I need to be associated with, affiliated with, whatever. I just worry about going back to the kids thing.
Right.
Like, kids are they've got a ton of growing up to do, and they make a lot of mistakes. And for their mistakes to be broadcasted to the world and etched in stone is horrific. So I'm like looking at it from the two dimensions of
we're definitely talking full brain development, and some of those brains are stupid and still just dumb kids who are still developing their brain.
Right, exactly. But yeah, just going back to like, online isn't real life. It is real. And that Thanksgiving dinner table just got a whole hell of a lot longer, and the reach is just infinite, and your like your opinion that's just solely based on your little tiny bubble, your little tiny world. Yes, you might think that your way is the right way, but sometimes it's not the message that sucks, it's the delivery. Like, people really just need to work on how that they're carrying their message.
So as we wrap up today, we asked you to just think about it as you're consuming social media, and just maybe you need to take into account Unfollow Friday.
To end this whole Unfollow Friday, I wanted to say this as somebody who runs a quasi, I don't know, like the Hilarious Humanitarian.
You're so humble. What's the word? I can't think of the word. It's late.
Yeah. So the Hilarious Humanitarian is a collection of memes that I've made, memes that I've repurposed, memes that I have found and credited towards the meme creator, original quotes that I have found, pictures, lifestyle stuff, whatever. I want to make it like a diverse place. And I'm certainly not saying like, look at me as the picture of Instagram strength and ethical, behavior. I'd like to think I am, but I'm still a human and I make mistakes and I have a lot of growing to do. But, in ending this conversation, I just want to say this because it's kind of a prickly pear that sometimes lobs me upside the head. And I want people to think about this more clearly. When you go on Instagram, all these meme accounts, you know what they remind me of is like, have you been to New York or like any high traffic tourist area? And it's a dime a dozen, like those stores that sell keychains and mugs and tourist shirts. Everywhere you go, that's like a tourist trap. there are hundreds of those stores, and each store literally sells the same exact thing, right? I personally feel, even as like a owner of like a meme account, that a lot of these meme accounts are those stores.
Absolutely. They're all
right?
the ABC stores that you see in Honolulu.
Yes.
If you've ever been to Hawaii.
We're selling the same shit at really the same cost, but some stores are positioned better than others.
I like that.
And you want to ask yourself why. Why are some accounts positioned better than others? What it boils down to is exposure, and exposure oftentimes come from a lot of resources. They might have known somebody, they might have had money to buy their followers, and so the perception of an account that has a lot of followers is, oh, this is a good account, right? There's a ton of stuff going on. So I made a post a couple weeks ago that just said, I encourage people to be more mindful of the meme accounts that they're supporting, because let's face it, a lot of people will be like, how do you make money on Instagram? There's a ton of money to be made on Instagram, and you're supporting these people by following them, by tagging your friends to them. And so listen, I just want people to be mindful and aware of what they're supporting. So for example, if you're supporting and following a meme account that posts nothing but like animal memes, is that account holder like doing something for the greater good of the world and animals? Like, they might have 1 million followers, right? That's a huge platform. But are they ever doing anything to like help the animals of the world? Or are they just ripping off memes that they find on Reddit, not crediting anybody, but just growing like a juggernaut, like just like crazy, and but they're not even doing anything other than just collecting money from advertisers. I don't know. I might sound bitter. I don't mean to sound bitter or anything. I'm just trying to encourage people to like, maybe instead of following them, maybe instead of following them, you can think about following another animal meme account that holds like a monthly post about adopt, don't shop, or maybe they have a podcast that talk about animal rights or something like that. So
I think what you're saying is the power of your voice and the power of your dollar is what it comes down to, and being more, critical of, again, going back to the things you're consuming, but then also where are you putting your energies and what things are those then propelling forward. So this really leads in really well to the feel good news story this week, which I found, which I absolutely love, Deanna. We talk about companies doing more, right? Well, this is from a Business Insider. Adidas, who doesn't love Adidas, they have sold 1 million pairs of sneakers made from ocean trash.
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. So they revealed that it's sold more than 1 million pairs of sneakers made from ocean plastic with its partnership with, I think I'm saying it right, Parley. And then they also, this is kind of a trend that is happening. There's a big bunch of stuff floating around the ocean that's like the size of Texas. Like, trash is a real problem. And so what they've done is there's this material that's made out of recycled plastic, polymer, that's used to construct footwear. And now, yes, has Adidas sold more than 1 million pairs of shoes in the last couple of years? Yes, but it's a start. And so I think that's really cool, because they don't necessarily have to do this, but they're doing it. And so I think that shows that, big companies can give back and do things that make a difference. We can do the same on a smaller level, because really all change really does start on a smaller level with a change in your perspective and your values and the way you want to view the world. So that's the news.
I agree completely. So kudos to Adidas. That's awesome.
What did you do for self-care this week?
Self-care. Well, we had a lot of rain.
That's true. Actually, we did too, finally.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain, and it was a little hectic in my household because, of course, it's like where rain comes the sniffles, and sniffles come lack of sleep again. And I feel like a broken record. But once again, I'm pretty much doing self-care today, because the whole week I was taking care of my child, and my husband works from home. And I just told him today, I was like, listen, I'll be around, but I need to carve out some time for myself. Like I have some work items to get done, or I just need like a little bit of space just to get a breather in. So I'm going to go on a long walk. Usually I go with my child and my husband, which I will later on, but I think I'm going to go by myself. I just like need a little bit of me time, whether that's just like, so, and of course, cause I'm me, I'll miss my, it's like, I need alone time. And then I get alone time and I'm like, I miss them.
You can't miss them if you're always there. It's just saying.
Yeah, that's true. So actually today I'm going to be doing some self-care. And so it started with just letting my husband know, like, hey, this is what I need today for mommy to be okay.
I like it.
Yeah. What did you do for your self-care?
I reached out for help on something. There were some changes in the schedule with the kids, and this weekend leading up to my birthday, I had plans to go do these Spartan races, and I didn't want to drag the kids along because I knew that they would be long days, but these are my thing. Like, and I have a goal this year, me and 2 friends, really, we want to be able to do a double trifecta, which is 6 of these. And it was part of my plan. Like, this is what I wanted to do for my birthday. And so I started to panic, like, what am I going to do with the kids? Because I had these plans and then their dad had to travel. So I reached out to his sister because we co-parent fine. And I was like, look, here's the thing. And she was really cool. And you know what? I knew she was going to be, but I think I had a whole lot of, I was afraid. I was like, there was going to be judgment, not by her or her family, but just, well, why don't you spend the weekend with your kids or this or that, or not understanding that me as a woman, as a person really wanted to do this. And yes, I love my children very much, but I also have goals I want to do as a woman and as a person and for my birthday, for myself. So anyways, kids are covered. They're good. They're going to be hanging out with their cousins.
I like it. Good for you.
So that was really new.
What is this number for Spartan race this year?
Well, this is going to be numbers 2 and 3. 3 and 4. We did a weekend of them back in January. And then my big ones, the beasts, which are like 12 plus miles, won't be until later in the year, but that's our plan for the weekend. But I think just that, like being, and the other thing is spring break. We talked about this. Spring break is great if you're a teacher or for kids. But when you're a working parent, finding daycare for spring break is just a pain in the ass. So I did. I called up my support system and was like, hey, can you help me out? I asked my boss if I could bring my kids for a couple hours. And they were all really receptive. And I don't know why I was freaking out so much about it. So
yeah, I hear you. I do that too. I just like stir and get anxious and don't reach out. And then like a couple months down the line, my family will be like, you never reach out for help. We're here. I'm like, I don't know. It's just weird. So good for you. I'm happy you did it. So, fan mail. I got a really cool, here, look, Washington, D.C. Which
I like it.
Like really symbolic because of the March for Our Lives that's coming up. So it's a postcard I got. I don't know who it's from because they did not write their name. However, they wrote a very nice message. It says, hello from Washington, D.C. Thank you for providing an honest space with your podcast for humor and life lessons. I am an MSW student in my last year, and I love hearing advice and laughter from 2 fellow clinicians. Much love. So thank you to whoever sent us that wonderful piece of fan mail.
We got a message coming in on Instagram, and it says, and her name's Julia. She says, I just started listening all the way from Singapore, and I love how real you guys are.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Julia.
From Ventura in Fresno, California to Washington, D.C. and over to Singapore, that has been episode number 23, Unfollow Friday of the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast.
Once again, we love you guys. Subscribe. Thank you. Subscribe to us. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube. But if you subscribe, we would very much appreciate that, and leave a 5-star rating and tell your family and friends. And we love all of you guys. And I'm going to end with something that Francis said last week, and that is to proceed with compassion.
All right. Find Hilarious Humanitarian, Deanna on Instagram. I am Shut Up Skippy. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.